Hi, you're watching What Was That About? I'm Candice Paddock, your host today, and we're here with Dr. Tony Soldano. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Candice. Thank you.
Well, Pastor, we've been hearing a lot about the attack on kids, and I believe that this generation is really coming under attack. There is just a war out on our kids of today, and we're hearing recently what happened with the Texas shooting. What are your thoughts in general about what's happening on the kids and these just major attacks that are making the headlines?
Well, Candice, we are living in just unbelievable days, especially when it comes to young people and children. And, you had done a program for Mother's Day called Weapons of Mass Destruction, which I want to touch on a little bit today. This latest shooting, is absolutely just completely senseless. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. And then we even have children killing children now. I mean, in my day when I was young, you never heard of these things. And now all of a sudden it's just almost every week. If it's not every week, it's every month, and something is happening with these children. And so it's very, very tragic. It's very heartbreaking. Clearly, we have rejected God in our school systems. Yes. We've rejected the Bible. We've rejected kingdom principles, and now we are reaping. We're reaping the effects of that. That when you ask God to leave and He leaves, then darkness and evil comes in, and what they've replaced it with, all this political correctness and nonsense, is clearly not the answer.
Yeah, I think you're right, Pastor. And when we look at it, as myself being the mother of a teenage child, and just looking at all the things that are coming at them, all that they're being invited into in this time, and when they have, and we'll talk about it, access to the social media, it actually invites them into worlds that they are not ready to handle, I personally think, and they don't have the capacity to handle. So my concern, as you know, is also as a parent, we have to guard our kids until they're ready to be able to handle the things that are coming at them. What's your thoughts on parents' role in that then, and how they should, how involved they should be with their kids and their social media?
Well, that's a great word, involvement. And let's be honest. We are living in a day where if it's not broken households, then it's households where maybe they're both working and they're away from their children, they're away from the home. And so children are left to their own, and a lot to social media, right? It's like YouTube and Facebook and Instagram that are raising these children. Can I say it that way? Now, interesting, you said, you are a single mom. You are, training, developing your daughter, a wonderful young lady. But part of that is that you also work, but you spend an incredible amount of time with her. But Candice, and I want you to talk about this, because I think what you alluded to in setting up these borders or barriers around these children, because they are not ready. They're not ready for the ideas of sexualization. They're not ready for the ideas of violence and the things that are being propagated, whether it's through movies and videos and particularly social media. If we don't guard their minds, they absorb all these thoughts and ideas, and then they believe it's reality and that they can live it out. And so you had called it weapons of mass destruction. Maybe you can speak about some of the practical things on, it's not very popular. For example, should young people even have cell phones, and at what age? And if they have them, what do you allow them to see and not see, and how involved are you in what they do ingest into their soul and into their heart? Maybe you could speak to that as a mom.
Yeah, so that is very true, and I do call them weapons of mass destruction. I took a long time before I allowed my daughter to have a cell phone, and I even think it was too early. But one thing that I asked God early about, because I knew this was a different generation from the generation I grew up in, which is a different generation from before. They're growing up in something different. God told me from an early age, Candace, you need to have your eyes open. You need to have my wisdom because we don't even know as parents what's out there. So we want to ask God for wisdom on how to govern our children's time and what values we should place in them. And now we want them to have cell phones. We want them to be relevant. We want them to have access. But we need also to tell them how to steward the access that they have. So so for my own daughter, I let her know what she can be on, what she can't be on. I even give her time limits. It's her phone, but I give her a limit on the time that she can spend. Now she's not on social media. So I that's one thing that I have been strong about. And she's asked for it multiple times, but I've said no social media. But also I have to tell her, because in social media alone, that's not where they're getting this influence from. It's coming from their friends who are also ingesting what's going on out there. So now you have to know when something comes up, how do I handle it? I don't enter into conversations. I don't enter into watching things that my friends might be showing me or programs. How do you get them to walk into a room and know what's right if you haven't told them godly wisdom, shown it in your own home? And that's the kind of thing that is a struggle sometimes, Pastor, because we can't always supervise everything that they're looking at. So how do we set them examples of what they should be looking at so they govern themselves as well? Godly principles, and also show them the harm that it does. For example, practically, my daughter and I, we will listen to lyrics of songs sometimes, and I will point out to her in these songs what's happening. Now, for me to be a parent and to say, I'm not going to listen to anything that this generation has in it because it's just, disgusting, is not right. We need to be aware. So sometimes I will listen to music and I will say to her, what do you think this fosters in the heart of somebody or a young person? What is this aiming to do? And these are the kinds of things, Pastor, and conversations we need to bring in with our young people. We need to be very involved, even more involved, I believe, than our parents were.
And Candace, I think you make an excellent point that, what has been the agenda, let's say in the last 10, 20 years for sure, is this erosion of what's right and wrong. Like, you can no longer say, well, this is right and this is wrong, or this is black and this is white, because we're now living in a society where absolutes are rejected, right? If it's right to you, then it must be right. But if it's wrong to you, it must be wrong. Well, no, they've said, listen, we're gonna wipe those things out. We're just gonna make everything some sort of shade of gray. But God is very clear. I think this is why this is why I believe the Lord has given us the Word of God. It's that plumb line that says, no. My principles don't change whether culture changes or not. And throughout history, we've seen cultures come and go. Sometimes more godly, many times less godly. But I think part of the fear that is in parents, that I believe part of the agenda is to silence them, because I believe their voice is powerful, and I've created videos on that as well, is this erosion of the idea that there is absolute right and there is absolute wrong. And I want to be very clear, the Bible is absolutely right. God is absolutely right. And that's what we need to instill in our children, because if you don't give them that sense of this is right and this is wrong, how will you ever know? If everything is acceptable, which is the day in which we live in. And I think this is why there's so much confusion. And then you're right, when our children hear messages in church or they hear messages from godly parents, and then they try to live life in quote unquote the real world, they just get a barrage. They're just overwhelmed with these godless ideas, or even with the thought that no, you cannot have right. You cannot have these things are right and these things are not right, or these things are righteous and these things are sin, or God forbid we use words like holiness and purity. Like, we can't even have those discussions anymore because it's so passé. This is how quickly the world has moved. But I think we're doing our children a complete injustice. So you're right, Candace. I mean, we can't put them in a bubble, but I think we have to steward the information, the knowledge, the things that they see.
Yeah, and coming to that, I'm going to throw something in here that people are going to be offended about, probably a little bit, because I've heard a lot of it. But they were saying that with this Texas shooting, that gun control is the solution. Well, I say gun control is not necessarily the solution. People will have access from what's in their heart to access anything that can let them live out the things that they're thinking in their mind. What's your thought about that in the context of addressing the symptoms rather than the root of what's happening in kids today.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if you have a reduction and a decrease of morality, which we clearly do, then those things that are in the heart, as you say, manifest. And then if you have access, to guns, but here's the truth: the bad people are always going to have guns, like or whatever, knives, gun, whatever it may be. Candace, if your intent is to murder and hurt people, you're going to find a way. So the question becomes: is it removing the guns? Now, here's what's interesting in the United States: some of the states which have the strongest and strictest gun control have the highest murders. For example, like the city of Chicago, which is very democratic, lots of gun control, and yet they're murdering people left, right, and center. So I'm not a gun lobbyist, but that's not the answer. The answer is, Candace, is the heart, is the values. We have lost common values. Like there was a day, even if you were not a Bible-believing person, we had this concept of right and wrong and decency, and that's gone now. Like the average person, I don't even think can tell you what's right and what's wrong any longer. And that's because it's this constant washing of the brain, washing of the mind that, values don't matter, principles don't matter. And then, listen, we're living in the last days, and we have a increase of demonic activity. The Bible tells us this. And so you see these manifestations of murder and violence and wickedness, and particularly against children. And I just want to remind everybody of Matthew 8:6, where Jesus said this, Candace: "But if you cause one of these little ones who trust in me to fall into sin, it would be better for you to have a large millstone tied around your neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea." Here Jesus is saying, you're better off to go kill yourself. Candace, I always ask myself, these people, mass shootings, whatever, why don't you just go kill yourself? Why do you have to harm others? Why do you have to perpetrate evil upon others? Why do you have to harm these children? Go harm yourself if wickedness is in your heart. But we know that, the devil doesn't work like that. But this is the problem. As we continue to erode values, as we continue to say to God, get out of our schools, get out of our families, get out of our governments, get out of our institution. These are the things that we're going to live with. I believe we're going to see more of this. So is gun control the answer? No. That is a political statement that'll have no relevance whatsoever. The root of the problem is the belief system, and that, Candace, we have removed the sacred from the heart.
That's right. The Bible says, guard your heart, for out of it flows all the issues of life. So if you want to look at what the problem really is, we have to look at inwardly and look at the heart. And parents, we encourage you, spiritual warfare is something that we have to do in this time. Please use godly wisdom. It is something that you really, really do need in this time. Ask God. He's willing to tell you. He created your kids. He knows at the time that you're living in. And this has been just like a powerful, powerful session, Pastor. I hope that people understand and are aware of what's happening and, and ask questions. Ask questions of your kids. Parents, ask questions of each other.
Yeah.
And together we can do this. God is with us. Yeah. So we want to thank you for joining us on our program. We look forward to being with you next time, and we'll see you again soon.